All right, good evening. This is the Colorado Energy and Carbon Management Commission. It is 5:30 and it is September 5th, and we are continuing docket 2406-00145. We met all day today. I would note for the record that the commissioners are all here. So I don't think we need to take roll call. We still exist. We existed all day. Oh, good. There's Commissioner Shea. Good to see you too. So 6 out of 7 are with us. And with that, I would turn it over to Hearings Manager Jacobs to sort of introduce the evening's spiel.
Okay, so tonight the commission is hearing public comment from folks who signed up to give comment on the cumulative impacts, enhanced systems and practices rulemaking. I just wanted to make a note initially that the commission is pleased to make Spanish interpretation available for the public comment sessions for this rulemaking. As we begin, you'll notice a globe option on your Zoom menu that will allow folks to enter a Spanish language room where the public comments will be translated into Spanish. If you wish to join the Spanish interpretation room, just raise your hand for assistance. In addition, if you will be providing public comment, our interpreter will be available to translate your comments from Spanish so that you can address the commissioners directly, and will also translate commissioner comments into Spanish. If you do not require interpretation, you don't need to do anything. And now I'll turn it over to our interpreter, Christian. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Muy buenas tardes a todos. Mi nombre es Cristian Jiménez. Voy a ser el intérprete de ustedes esta noche. La comisión ECMC está muy contenta de proveer este servicio para usted. Si usted va a necesitar interpretación de inglés a español y de español a inglés, aquí voy a estar para atenderle. Ahorita en unos momentos se va a aparecer un globo en la parte de abajo. Usted va a poder escoger español y va a poder escuchar todos los lo va a poder hacer solamente cuando ese tiempo.
Do you guys hear him?
No.
Hey, Christian, somehow or another you got muted.
I think they turned on the Spanish. Okay, there we go. I think I'm
Okay,
back.
maybe start over or start wherever you think you got cut off.
Sure. Si usted va a querer interpretación al español, ahorita se va a aparecer en la parte de abajo un globo. Va a poder aceptar ahí y escoger el español. Usted me va a escuchar a mí y si usted quiere hablar, nos regresamos a este cuarto, a la sala de inglés. Yo le voy a traducir su comentario de español a inglés y luego regresamos otra vez para que usted pueda escuchar el resto de esta reunión completamente en español. Si necesita asistencia, puede levantar la mano aquí en Zoom y yo con gusto le voy a atender. Muchísimas gracias y vamos a aprender ahora la interpretación. Okay, thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much. It looks like language interpretation is now available. So just to lay the framework, we've got about 40 people signed up tonight. We've got one elected official that'll go first. They'll have 5 minutes. Everyone else will have 3 minutes. We're going to load the panel with 2 or 3 folks at a time so that we got the speaker and the person that's on deck and the person that's in the hole, to use baseball analogies. And so with that, we will start. And the first person is Allison Combs from the city of Aurora.
All right. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak today. I'm going to keep my camera off because I'm having a little connectivity issue. But I appreciate the opportunity to address you. I'm an Aurora City Council member, and it's September, which means that our ozone season is finally waning. I've been able to take advantage of this nice cool day and clear air to take my kiddo out to the park. And this is good news for everyone, including my family, that we have this clear air, that ozone season, because we've had a rough summer with air pollution, but this most significantly impacts our most vulnerable populations. And waiting for the calendar to change is not an effective ozone reduction strategy. Many of my friends and I, who are parents of young children, have had to change and cancel our plans together with our kids this summer or change to in venues because of the extremely poor air quality and concern for our children's health. And that's because the trend has unfortunately continued and ever increasing days of dangerously high ozone levels. If we stay this course, the EPA is almost certain to raise the Front Range's status to an extreme non-attainment area, moving the Front Range up the list of the worst pollution, worst pollution areas in the country. This is the wrong direction, and we know it. We must address ozone through data-driven, enforceable, cumulative impact rules. I'm very concerned that the latest draft of your proposed cumulative impact rules only requires oil and gas developers to consider impacts within a minimum of 1 mile of each well pad. Air pollution does not stop at the 1 mile mark. In fact, cumulative by definition means the successive impacts to any community near or far that experiences negative impacts from production. It also means that we must be concerned with impacts to water quality, air quality, wildlife, and other concerns impacted by greenhouse gas emissions. I ask that you follow the language in HB 24-1346, which stipulates restricting well pads in all geographic areas that have the potential to contribute to cumulative impacts. It's easily defined based on the nature, intensity, and scope of the operation in its proposed location and the geographic extent of potential impacts, but it does need to be defined. These rules must include provisions that evaluate and address all cumulative impacts from ECMC approved operations, not just the narrowly prescribed subset of those impacts. And I want to see ECMC adopt the changes being recommended by many that if an operator is not in compliance with their NOx intensity standard, then the director shall, not may, require the operator to come into compliance or the permit application should be denied. As a city council member in Aurora, I know we would not approve a permit if someone was not in compliance. The same standard of compliance must be ensured for our communities throughout the state. Finally, I'm disappointed by the use of the term cumulatively impacted communities in the August draft. My community has neighborhoods that are right below the CI communities threshold and would be left behind by the August draft. We can do better by all of our communities that have been most impacted to do so in this rulemaking. I'm addressing all the taxes in the second draft, and I ask the commission to give staff direction to work from the June draft as the starting point. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Combs. Glad you were able to be with us this evening. We now will recognize Chris Nelson.
Hello, I'm Chris Nelson, and I think it's very important to see what oil and gas regulations do to the economies of small towns. I myself was born and raised in a small town, so this is an issue that is something I know very well. The producers in Weld County have done lots of things for small communities. They've bought all the things from the 4-H community. They've given school buses to small towns, and they've employed lots of people. The tax money that is raised from oil and gas producers are a vital impact to these smaller communities and the people of Colorado. The regulations that have gone on all these years have been adhered to and followed by these oil companies, and they've been great citizens that have supported these communities. The cumulative impact is also very much a matter of economies. If these tax monies are taken out of these areas, how can these needs be funded? I'm very heartened from this last study to see that the regulations that we have worked so well, and we don't need any more of them. And I would heartily ask you not to increase the regulation on oil and gas production, because this state has had remarkable success adhering to these regulations. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Appreciate you being with us this evening, taking time out of your evening to provide us public comment. We now will hear from Janet Weipert.
This committee has been very diligent in helping Colorado petroleum industry be one of the cleanest, safest, and most regulated in the world. Your work is helping the petroleum industry become cleaner and even more environmentally responsible. Our air quality is continuing to improve, making breathing easier for all of us. I grew up in the petroleum industry, being born in Rangeley, with my first home being the Texaco camp just outside of town. I have visited many well sites with my dad, who was a petroleum engineer. Having had severe respiratory and allergy problems all my life, I am more aware of the air and environmental quality problems than the average person. Over the years, I have watched improvements in technology, safety, and environmental controls. Having worked with the industry myself, I realize both the necessity of these regulations and the cost and burdens the companies all have had to absorb and pass on to the customer. When production costs increase, the price of gasoline at the pump and the gas to heat our homes and water increases, as does the cost to transport any products. This becomes a very increasing burden to those who are disproportionately impacted in their communities or otherwise marginalized. Petroleum companies are also very socially aware and provide many benefits for areas where they have been active. Benefits beyond the direct and indirect jobs, the taxes and fees collected. They quietly donate local charities and causes to help elevate all within the community. We need the petroleum. Alternative fuels are an important part of the energy supply, but it's a very small portion. Importing more expensive oil from other countries, many of whom are our sworn enemies, is costly and endangers our national security. And this oil is not produced under the same regulations, often being very harmful to the environment. Why should we import petroleum when we have enough reserves here in our nation to provide all we need and that we can export to our other friendly nations? Thank you for listening to my comments today, and thank you again for all the hard work you do to keep our state safe and clean, balancing regulations and petroleum production.
Thank you, Ms. Weipert. Appreciate you taking time out of your evening to be with us. Next is Sevelia Cribbs.
Hi, good afternoon, and thank you so much for taking the time to listen to all these comments. Again, I'm Sevilla Cribbs, and I have lived and worked here in Colorado for off and on for the past 10 years. My children live here and also some of my family. I've worked in oil and gas now for 20 years, and I'm proud of what I do. I'm proud of being able to provide safe and reliable energy to the communities in which I live. And I just wanted to say that I would ask that the ECMC not launch any new investigations on since so much time and money has already been devoted to arriving at a conclusion. It would serve to raise prices, and honestly, it affects the people who are least able to pay that increase. I can tell you for myself, I don't have a position of authority in the industry. I'm just a little guy on on the ladder, and I just want you to be aware that the jobs that are affected or potentially affected by the decisions that you make, they affect me. They affect smaller people like me. They by and large, people in leadership and say, engineers and geologists usually are not affected. as the smaller people, we're not fat cats. And my bank account does not reflect that either. But I do love to live and work in Colorado. I can tell you that my children have been here since middle school, and they have enjoyed clean air much more so than in other parts of, say, Oklahoma, from where I've come. And I feel strongly that these considerations need to be made in addition to all the things that oil and gas provides, taxes and whatnot. It's the people who live and work in Colorado, like people like me, whose jobs are potentially affected. Yeah, but anyway, so that's all I had to say. I appreciate you guys listening to me. And just thanks for doing all making the hard decisions that you make.
Thank you very much. We now will hear from Thomas Heger.
Yes, can you hear me?
We can, and we can see you.
Okay, yeah, hello, my name's Tom Hager, and I've lived in Loveland, Colorado since 1973. During my 30-plus year career with Hewlett-Packard here, I've worked as an engineer, moving up to an R&D section manager, manufacturing engineering manager, and manufacturing manager. First of all, I want to thank you very much for your service and the very important role you play in defining requirements and reviewing applications for the oil and gas industry. The reason I brought up my HP career is I had a large role in providing leadership and technical support for a project when HP Loveland was the largest polluter of CFCs in the state of Colorado. CFCs, chlorofluorocarbons, were depleting the ozone layer, and in Loveland, we emitted 760,000 pounds annually of these chemicals back in the 90s. During that time, I was asked to reduce, or better still, eliminate CFC usage in Loveland. We did that by developing a high-pressure water-based system for cleaning printed circuit board assemblies, which still maintain the technical specifications of our precise instrumentation. Bottom line is, after multiple months of defining requirements and running many experiments, we were able to come up with a solution. And a year later, with capital equipment in place, we released this to production. A well-drawn-out plan with ongoing review led us to a superior solution. We eliminated all CFC usage in Loveland. I bring this up as you start looking at the cumulative effects, longer-term effects of oil operations near schools, residences, and other sensitive areas. I recently heard that the current distances between operations and residences were reviewed and approved, consistent with what the oil and gas industry had said. With all the emotion on this topic, I understand that you are now considering looking into longer-term cumulative effects that this may have on individuals. I am wondering why you feel a need to study this further, and is it because you haven't collected enough data on this question and further study is needed? I would also ask that if you pursue this, that you first consider drawing up target goals that are required after studying prior work, and make sure that your decisions are driven by data and not just concerns from those who will never be satisfied by whatever results come in, as I see in some of the readings that I've done recently on this subject. Please remember that the oil and gas industry has been meeting or exceeding progress on the emission goals for both 2025 and 2030. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. I believe we're supposed to hear from Robert Nord next. Mr. Nord, are you with us? Okay, let's hear from, I don't know how to pronounce your name, Akil?
Yes, Aki, perfect. Okay, great. Thank you so much. First of all, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to be able to speak to all of you at this hearing. It is an honor. And my name is Akil Masih. I moved to the United States about 30 years ago, straight to Colorado from Pakistan. I went to high school and then college here in Colorado. now I'm here living with my family. And I believe, I have good common sense, and I feel like I'm enough educated person that I can understand when there are some things that can benefit and can hurt the economy and our family. So that's why I like to thank you for the opportunity. So, all right. Uh, I believe oil and gas drilling has been part of Colorado since I've been here. I used to drive around and used to see those oil wells here, and they used to feel cool. And the gas prices in Colorado used to be very phenomenal. The economy used to be very desirable. The environment was fine as well. I have seen decline in environment only for the past few years when they started regulating oil and gas along with other agendas. As a member of disproportionately impacted community, it is important for you all to listen to people like me and our shared experiences instead of listening to groups who claim to speak on my behalf. Most members of disproportionately impacted communities are economically disadvantaged. And by increasing regulations, you are making it harder for our communities to see economic growth. Therefore, I strongly oppose government regulations, especially on oil and gas. I have many friends who have worked directly with oil drilling in the Middle East until they moved here in Colorado, and we speak, and I do not hear any complaints or health issues from all of those who have directly been involved in this. These people are in their 60s, 70s, and they're still healthy. And I mean, they are excited when they used to talk about their work in Middle East. So I know directly that uh, there is no problem with drilling. Therefore, please stop regulating the oil and gas drilling regulations. It boosts the economy rather than it hurts it. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak and oppose all the regulations against oil and gas. Thank you.
Thank you very much for participating with us this evening, Akil. We now will hear from Robert Nord.
Yes, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Name is Robert Nord. I've lived in Arapahoe County for 7 years, although I'm born and raised here in Colorado. And in my life, I've traveled all over the U.S., mainly for the Department of Energy. We had projects with that entity and handling labor relations issues with the various construction labor unions. I was fascinated with the power division. That's what I got started in this business. And I worked for Stearns Roger out of Denver, and we built most all of the power plants up and down the Frontal Range for Public Service Company of Colorado. We thank you for working diligently with the energy industry to ensure that we have safe and clean production. During my time working in the field, it was amazing to see the innovations made to clean up production and new technologies created to mitigate pollution from now out. I believe in the science today of drilling for oil and gas, and it is close to perfection. I have several friends that are in the business and have done very well at it. Over the years, the industry has continued to make huge strides in being cleaner and more efficient and more energy efficient. Just as I observed from the 1960s to 2000 with coal production. And by the way, company I work for built most of all of Colorado interstate gas compression plants that were built up in Wyoming to feed gas down here to Colorado. Every plant was built with improvements that were necessary to clean our environment. Oil and gas production is essential to our way of life in Colorado and can greatly contribute to Arapahoe County's economy bringing in the jobs and energy we need. I urge the county not to impose new regulations on oil and gas production and to continue working with the industry to improve our technologies and contribute to cleaner environment. And lastly, but not leastly, is the fact that companies like the ones I've worked for, Bechtel and Stearns Roger and others, that our safety and science is very high on the screen for all of our companies. We drill down to the lowest supervisor on our projects, and we have excellent safety conditions. We get the employees involved and the unions involved, and everybody is engaged. So just appreciate your giving us all diligent consideration, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Nord, for your being with us this evening. We appreciate it. We now will recognize Kim Schaefer.
I have asked the Kim Schaefer line to unmute and to show video, but we haven't gotten a response. So Ms. Schaefer,
Yeah, Ms. Schaefer, if you want to hit *6 or just hit unmute at the bottom of the screen, left-hand side.
we do have Jan Rose, I believe, here that we could proceed with in the meantime while Mr. or Ms. Schaefer tries to figure that out.
Looks like looks like Schaefer's about to get it done. Oh, nope, that's Jan Rose. Hey, Jan, nice to see you. You can go ahead and go.
Thank you. To quote the House and Senate committee chairs of Energy, Environment, Transportation, Housing, and the Legislative Council, the rules must include protections for DICs and prioritize emissions reductions that will reduce cumulative impacts affecting these communities. Reduce, not mitigate, not minimize, not even avoid, reduce. So the draft rules are wrong, and I ask you to fix them. There is no legislative recognition of a CIC. It is an artificial construct created for the benefit of the oil and gas industry, and there is no drilling in CICs anyway, so claiming you'll prevent drilling in CICs is like saying you're going to prevent drilling on the moon. Hiding behind an artificial construct to make it appear you're being protective when you're not is wrong. Please stop it. I've looked at over 40 Form 2Bs of approved OGDPs, and the inconsistencies in the data provided are alarming. The exact same equipment with estimated emissions all over the place, including zero, and some are even completely blank. Please take the time to confirm you actually know how much harm you're being asked to approve. To do anything else is wrong. Please stop it. A one-size-fits-all impact area is absurd. An OGDP in the Pawnee National Grasslands has an entirely different impact area than an OGDP 1,000 feet from the Aurora Reservoir. Every permit in the non-attainment zone has an impact on the entire non-attainment zone. Every OGDP must be evaluated based on its unique characteristics. There is no rule that works equitably for every application. To pretend otherwise for the sake of convenience is wrong. Please stop it. Lastly, you now have a mandate that cumulative impacts include climate impacts. From June of 23 through July of 24, we were 1.6 degrees centigrade above normal. And the United States is pumping more oil and gas than any country ever has. Plus, we have approved in the United States enough new permits to continue that dubious award until 2070. We don't need a single new well in Colorado to meet all of the nation's, and in fact, all of the world's oil and gas needs for the next 50 years. Approving more permits in densely populated areas, particularly in communities already excessively harmed by oil and gas development, is wrong. No more drilling in DICs. Be heroes. The right time to do right is right now. Just do it.
Thank you, Ms. Rose. Always appreciate hearing from you. We'll now try Kim Schaefer again.
Hello,
Yes, we can hear you.
my name is Kim Schaefer. I've lived in Colorado for 29 years and my husband was born and raised here. I've chosen to speak today because my husband and I are located in a disproportionately impacted area and we interact with low income and homeless people who struggle to make ends meet daily. I want to start by saying thank you to the steering committee members who spent the last 2 years investigating whether oil and gas production in our state was disproportionately affecting our most vulnerable in the state. I appreciate your recommendations and your hard work and your willingness to work with us and listen to us as we give our opinions. Also, though, I find it disturbing that there are groups in our state who are not willing to utilize your recommendations and seem to care more about pressing forward with an agenda rather than allowing us to move forward as a community and tap into the natural resources that we've been blessed with in the state. I respectfully say that any further time and money spent on this subject would not only be futile, but harm the very people this study started out to investigate and protect. This again would lead to driving up the cost of living and disproportionately affecting not only the livelihoods of the poor, but the school-aged children, the elderly, the middle class, and anyone who's actually working for a living and not receiving governmental assistance. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for being with us and testifying. We now will hear from Ella Norman.
Hello, my name is Ella Norman, and I'm speaking on behalf of NRDC, the Natural Resources Defense Council. I appreciate the opportunity to provide input on this rulemaking. Unlike the draft rules released in June, which included many key protections, the draft rules released on August 2nd fail to protect communities and the environment from the harmful effects of oil and gas pollution. ECMC has the opportunity to protect public health and promote environmental justice by passing stronger rules through 5 key changes. First, ECMC should use the definition of disproportionately impacted communities agreed upon by state lawmakers. Limiting the rules to, quote, cumulatively impacted communities will leave behind most communities who are negatively impacted by oil and gas drilling, who would greatly benefit from these protections. Second, the rule should close loopholes to ensure no new oil and gas operations are allowed within 2,000 feet of disproportionately impacted communities without informed consent. This is essential to protect families from the health risks that come from living close to oil and gas operations. Additionally, ECMC should collect baseline air quality data to determine the amount of pollution present in a community before approving a new drilling permit. This is an essential first step in assessing cumulative impacts. The combined effects of multiple oil and gas operations can have devastating consequences for air and water quality, wildlife, and human health. Fourth, ECMC should set and enforce strict limits on ozone-causing toxic air pollutants produced during high ozone days. Nitrous oxides released from oil and gas production contribute significantly to the formation of ground-level ozone, which causes respiratory problems, asthma, and other health issues. Finally, ECMC should require leaky oil and gas wells located in disproportionately impacted communities to be plugged in order to offset pollution from oil and gas activities. These old, unprofitable wells are a risk to communities and wildlife as they leak methane gas and other toxic chemicals. In conclusion, the cumulative impacts of oil and gas production pose serious threats to Colorado communities. Through passing strong rules to limit cumulative impacts, ECMC has the opportunity to protect our communities, air quality, and wildlife. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate you being with us this evening and presenting information from NRDC. Next, we will turn to, I think it's Marilee Tohill.
Mute. Okay, hello. My name is Marilee Tohill, and I moved to Colorado in 1967 with my husband, who was a geologist. He had a brand new job with a large oil company during the time when the oil and gas industry was thriving. there were about 2,000 geologists employed here. We fell in love with beautiful Colorado, especially enjoying camping, fishing, and skiing. We grew into a prosperous middle-class family with 3 sons. In the mid-'80s, you might remember, the oil industry in America kind of collapsed. My husband's well-paying job was gone. Even with his master's degree and 20 years of experience, he was unable to find other employment for several years. I had to return to work after 13 years as a stay-at-home mother in order to support my family. And this happened to many other families and among our friends, and there was a big downturn in the whole Denver economy. My concern these days is that this could happen again to families who depend on the good jobs in the oil and gas industry. It's my understanding that Colorado has the most stringent regulations over the industry of all the states, and that your own recent ECMC studies show that Colorado producers are meeting these standards. I appreciate the hard work your committee has put in to thoroughly study this issue over these past 2 years. I remember the brown cloud, and I am aware that innovations in methods of quality control of emissions from automobiles and from several industries, including oil and gas, have greatly reduced pollutants. The operators that we do have in Colorado plug more abandoned wells than they are drilling new wells now. We should applaud the operators in Colorado for all the work they have been doing to mitigate the emissions and not add more red tape for them to work around. Overregulation stifles companies from future development in Colorado. Less local production would lead to a loss of jobs, a loss of tax revenue, a loss of clean, affordable energy, and cause higher prices for most of the products that we already can't afford. As a member of a disproportionately impacted community, I urge you not to add more regulations to oil and gas. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being with us this evening, Ms. Tohill. We appreciate your testimony. We now will move to Joanne Hackus.
Okay. Can you see me at all?
Yes, we can see you and we can hear you.
Okay, very good. Thank you. We felt that with the passage of the cumulative impacts bill in the state legislature, many of us were hopeful that citizens of Colorado would see improvements to our air and water quality, to our wildlife, and to our quality of life. Instead, we find the staff and the commissioners of ECMC not only have not made improvements to the rules governing the development of oil and gas, but have actually made them make the rules more lenient than they were before. Disproportionately impacted communities already facing a health crisis because of operations in the midst of their communities, close to their homes. The draft rules make the danger to their health worse, not better. What was a required 2,000-foot setback from homes and businesses, schools, is stripped from the rules, allowing operations closer than ever. Not only is the community health and well-being more dangerously impacted than ever, those who live near the operations see the value of their homes declining, with severe economic impact on the communities. Even the introduction of a new term, cumulatively impacted communities, replacing the long agreed upon reference to disproportionately impacted communities, has an overwhelmingly negative effect. As I'm certain the staff and commissioners recognize, no CICs exist because they were never defined in the statutes. It's clear that the oil and gas industry has had a disproportionately disproportionate influence on the new rules, defining what will be enforced regarding cumulative impacts? Why is their point of view valued more highly by the commission than the concerns of actual community members? How many oil executives live in DICs or even CICs? I would suggest the number is 0, yet their perspective has disproportionately impacted these new rules. ECMC has not supported the people of Colorado, but it has also not supported the intent of the legislature to strengthen rather than weaken the rules. I urge you to go back and rework the rules in accordance with the intent of the original legislation rather than in favor of industry demands. Thank you very much for providing me time.
Thank you, Ms. Hakos. We appreciate you being with us this evening. We
Thank
now
you.
will recognize Carol Baker.
Right, hello.
Hello.
I want to record this myself. All right, I'll be reading this. My name is Carol Baker, and I have moved here I've lived here in Aurora since September 2002, when I moved here with my husband and 2 daughters. By profession, I was a pharmacist working in the retail setting. The patients I became acquainted with over the years were a cross-section of people from our community. They expressed their concerns about their health and the issues facing the world around us. Since I've been retired, I've been paying more attention to local government and candidates for state and local offices. As I learn more, I find there is so much more to know. For instance, I have learned that work done by boards and commissions contribute quite a bit to the policy making process. I have an appreciation for the work you do to diligently process so much input while you consider policies and rulemaking. As I have observed at hearings with city councils, county commissions, and state senate committees, that some comments during public comment are emotional presentations urging decisions to be made from sympathy or respond out of compassion. And this bothers me. In my 32-year career as a pharmacist, we expected our healthcare providers, especially our prescribers, to make treatment decisions based on good, sound judgment, based on years of study and considering results from well-founded studies. I would certainly hope members of boards and commissions, along with our legislators, to consider this professional approach to making decisions that affect me and the people in the world around me. Thank you. I'm Carol Baker from Aurora, Colorado.
Thank you, Ms. Baker. We appreciate you being with us and providing your perspective to us. We now will hear from Ellen Buckley.
Am I unmuted for you?
You are unmuted and we can see you. Good evening.
Great. Good evening. My name's Ellen Buckley, and I'm here to say that these draft rules and the changes you've made to them are unacceptable. I've heard a lot of testimony about the cost to oil and gas, but nothing about the external cost imposed on all of us by its pollution on our health and missed school and work. These are all costs. Once again, this commission has violated the mandates of Colorado law and given industry what it wants. As someone who is part of the sensitive population on air quality alert days, I am sick of being stuck inside on those days, and I am sick of being stuck inside when smoke from extreme wildfires caused by fossil fuel-driven climate change occur. This summer alone, we've had well over 40 ozone alert days. One of the worst changes you made between drafts was to again allow fracking during the summer months. Oil and gas is the largest single source of precursors to ozone pollution, as you all know. Allowing this pollution to continue during the summer is shortening people's lives and exacerbating breathing difficulties, including my own. The rule needs to ban it completely with no options for a variance. There's no mitigation that alleviates this, which is why fracking needs to be completely prohibited during May through September at a minimum. Your duty to protect health, safety, and welfare requires you to actually do this. Where's the language in the rules that requires you to deny a permit if baseline monitoring shows it would add to already excessive or would create excessive pollution? Where's the requirement for baseline monitoring? Where are the requirements for publicly available information attached to each permit application as to what's the baseline? What would their additional pollution cause? The draft rules as written also violate HB 21-1226 as they fail to protect disproportionately impacted communities. And by changing to cumulatively impacted, you limit the amount of DICs who are considered and protected. The rules also fail to consider regional and total cumulative impacts. Each permit needs to be considered for its total and regional impact because air doesn't stay within a 1 mile radius. Please rewrite these rules to actually make them prohibit cumulative impacts and protect DICs. Consider carefully the letter from the legislators that you've received and consider the testimony of affected people by your abdication of your duty to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the people and wildlife and environment of Colorado. The law requires you to protect us, not the fossil fuel industry as the current rules do. We are sick and tired of business as usual. Please reconsider this draft and make it protective. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Buckley. Appreciate you taking time out of your evening to present to us. We now will hear from Gail Nordham.
Hello, my name is Gail Nordheim, and I'm here today to support a strong cumulative impact rule for Colorado. We have a terrible ozone problem on Colorado's Front Range. In June, there were 15 ozone alert days. In July, there were 22, and in August, there were 5. So out of 92 days this summer, almost 46% were ozone alert days. The problem was particularly intense in June and July, when over 60% of days had ozone alerts. Pollution from fossil fuel extraction is a major driver of the severe ozone problem. Emissions from fossil fuel extraction also lead to climate change. Climate change is upon us and getting worse. Here in Colorado, we are experiencing higher temperatures, unprecedented wildfires, and droughts. The cumulative impact of oil extraction leads to these problems, with more than 50,000 wells in Colorado. If we keep adding wells, the problem will multiply. We will all suffer from bad air, heat, and extreme weather. Health problems, including asthma and other severe respiratory issues, will continue to increase. It will become impossible for children to play outdoors or for older people or people with medical issues to leave their homes. The problems will be worse for people living near the extraction sites who are already suffering from badly polluted environments. That is why it is so important that the rules protect all disproportionately impacted communities, not just those classified as CICs. The CIC classification should be removed from the rules. In passing SB 19-181, HB 23-1294, and HB 24-1346, the legislature showed that it understood the problem, and it directed the ECMC to pass comprehensive cumulative impact rules. Attempts to water down these rules because of fossil fuel industry objections are unacceptable. Even if each new well follows guidelines for keeping their pollution to a minimum, new wells added to those that already exist will have dangerous cumulative impacts. As a society, we need to say enough by establishing regulations that will deny new wells when cumulative impacts are too great. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nordheim, to be with us this evening. We now will see if we can hear from Newt Lerb. And Mr. Lerb, you're on a phone. You should either unmute or try *6 on your pad. Well, while we wait on Mr. Lerb,
Hello?
oh yeah, there you go, Mr. Lerb. You're good. We can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. I've been hearing a lot of talk about, my name's Newton Lerby, and I'm in Evans, Colorado. And I've been in Colorado since 1961. So I was here when the brown cloud was going on, and you could see it easily from where I live. And now, for quite a few years now, we haven't had a brown cloud down there. It's cleared up a lot. I also worked in the oil field. And during my time in the oil field, a lot of people were conscientious about preserving the quality of life and stuff that's going on, and what oil and gas industry might do to the locals. And so a lot of us as individuals did cleanup, and we didn't dump oil on the ground, and we tried to do whatever we could to keep the stuff from polluting everything. And there's just signs that show me that this is how it's been working. That we have cut back on things enough to make it better. I don't think regulations are the way to control this. We need fossil fuels to work. We need to keep people busy. We need to keep the industry alive. We have no other energy sources. I don't know what people keep talking about. The energy sources that I've been told about don't exist. Someday they probably will, but they don't today. And in 20 years, then those things will be here for us. But this is not 20 years from now. This is right now. We need to live with what we have until we can come up with something better. It's crazy to jump the gun like this.
Thank you very much for your testimony. We will now hear from Ron Booth.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, and we can see you.
All right. Yeah, I'm not that pretty to look at. My name's Ron Booth. I'm a longtime resident of Westminster, Colorado, resident of the state since 1993, and a lifelong environmental activist. I find the ECMC to be in direct contravention of SB 19-181, which calls on the ECMC to regulate in a manner that protects public health, safety, welfare, including the protection of the environment and wildlife resources. Doesn't say anything there about protecting the interests of special interest groups like the fossil fuel industry, which has been lying to Coloradans and people in this country and people around the world about the impacts of fossil fuels, not just for a year or two, but for decades on end. If weapons of war were being produced by a particular country and shipped elsewhere to be used in a war, the country providing those weapons would be responsible for the resulting deaths as much so as if they were using those weapons. If a country were facilitating the export or ignoring drugs being exported or the precursors for drugs that were addicting and killing people, we would say that that country or state was responsible for those addictions and deaths. How is it that the state of Colorado is not responsible for not just the direct emissions that fracking operations have an impact on our own communities, but communities across this country and around the globe as we all face a climate emergency, which no one has had the balls to declare yet? The US energy consumption is only exceeded by that of China, which, though its consumption is almost twice that of the US, China has nearly 5 times the population. With less than 5% of the world's population, we are burning up nearly 40% of the world's fossil fuels, plus what we're exporting, those poisons to other countries. This is criminal behavior. Being the world's largest producer as a country of fossil fuels, Colorado ranks 4th in production of these planet-killing fossil fuels. The impacts of on DICs is not limited to just the communities here in Colorado, but around the globe. Granted, it's virtually impossible to track the actual impact of Colorado's fossil fuel extraction globally, but it doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand that we in Colorado bear a considerable responsibility towards contributing to the 6th greatest extinction this planet has ever freaking known. And so far, as long as this committee's been in existence, not a damn thing measurable has taken place. So anyhow, the only meaningful approach is ideally would be for Colorado to completely end fracking altogether. But at the very least, we need to set a goal to phase out fracking and do so as soon as possible and stop ignoring the will of the people and the needs of this planet. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Booth. Appreciate your presentation to us this evening. We now will hear from Janice Hallowell.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, my name is Janice Hallowell. I was born here and I've lived in Colorado all my life. My beloved state is known for being healthy and clean. People move here to get away from the effects of climate change. Well, it's a dirty little state secret that due to fossil fuel extraction, our air is some of the worst in the world now. This summer, approximately half the summer days were too unhealthy to exercise outdoors. I find this unacceptable. All people living on the Front Range of Colorado, not just those within 2,000 feet of wells, are subjected to these high ozone days, which it's well documented, are mostly caused by oil and gas drilling. Lots of people are sick from it. I had brutal headaches for 3 weeks in July, correlating to the high ozone days. My grandchildren coughed all summer. This is unacceptable. We all know that the ECMC is mandated by law to put the health of the Colorado people above the interests of the fossil fuel industry. SB 19181 was signed into law over 5 years ago, and still you have not addressed cumulative impacts. You're not complying with the law on lowering this ozone problem, and you know it. This is unacceptable. I would ask this of you. When conditions are such as to produce high ozone days, such as May through September, or when there's smoke from forest fires, the ECMC should put out a stop drilling order across the state until conditions improve. Do it for the children, for the babies, the elderly, and everyone in between. And if you can't find it in your heart to do it for the people, then do it because it's the law. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Hallowell. We appreciate you being with us. We now will hear from Ms. Cerna. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Harper, you're right. You're next. I skipped over you. Apologies.
No worries. My name is Logan Harper. I'm a family physician who takes care of patients in the clinic and the hospital in the Denver metro area. I'm testifying today because I'm deeply concerned about the health impacts of the oil and gas industry on our community. And I'm asking you to prioritize the health of our most vulnerable neighbors by strengthening safeguards in the oil. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can. Go ahead.
Okay, by strengthening the safeguards in the permitting system for oil and gas development. There is ample and convincing.
They won't want.
Hold on just a second, Mr. Harper. Ms. Cerner, can you please hit mute until it's your turn?
Hey,
Thanks. Okay, Mr. Harper, if you want to start over, feel free. I apologize for the disruptions.
I'll summarize my first paragraph, which is that I'm a family doctor locally, and I'm here to urge you to strongly regulate oil and gas development. And the reason for that is because there's ample and convincing research demonstrating that people living near oil and gas industrial sites, including wells and refineries, suffer numerous adverse health effects due to that proximity. The exposure to chemicals just from living near one of these sites has been shown to increase risk of preterm birth and lung disease, and emerging data are showing links to childhood cancer and various types of cardiovascular disease. And these health impacts are most severely felt by the DICs who tend to live near these sites, but we also know that every single person on the Front Range is adversely impacted by our horrendous air quality. Air pollution is the #1 cause of preventable deaths worldwide, killing over 9 million people every year, directly causes conditions like heart attacks, strokes, and dementia, and yet we allow it to continue ravaging the health of Coloradans. In fact, the American Lung Association, which is the authority on respiratory health in this country, recently gave 10 Front Range counties an F for air quality and ranked the Denver-Aurora metro area as having the 6th worst air in the nation among cities. And we know that the vast majority of this air pollution is due to the extraction, processing, and combustion of oil and gas. So I see the effects of this pollution all the time. I care for many patients with chronic lung disease. I've seen them all suffer from the toxic air that we breathe here in Colorado. In fact, ozone pollution here has been found to cause around 800 deaths annually, and the overall mortality from air pollution is much higher. We've heard a lot tonight about the economic impacts of stronger regulation, so I wanted to speak to that. I ask you to consider the economic impacts of constant exposure to toxic air. When your child's asthma prevents them from going to school, when you have to quit your job because you can no longer work outside in polluted air due to a chronic condition, or when you accrue medical debt from repeated trips to the emergency department for a lung disease exacerbation, all of these things have massive economic impacts that must be considered when crafting these regulations. The oil and gas industry has put profits over people's lives for decades, but the ECMC now has an opportunity to finally put those practices to rest. The longer we take to reanalyze impacts, the more Coloradans will continue to get and stay sick from this pollution. You have an opportunity to protect the health of our vulnerable communities and move the state a big step closer to meeting its climate goals, So I urge you to enact much stronger protections that uphold the intent of the original legislation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Harper. Appreciate your being with us this evening and bringing the perspective to us. We now will hear from Ms. Cerna.
I'm here.
Hello, we can see you and hear you. Go ahead.
No, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Mr. Cerna.
Can they hear you?
Yeah, he can hear me, but I can barely hear them.
We hear you very good.
There you go. Thank you. My name's Guillermo Serna, and with all due respect, okay, I've been here since 1954. I have been involved in several of these meetings, and we speak, you listen, and you may not have listened at the time because maybe you weren't there or whatever, but we don't get any answers. And we need solutions to the whole problem, not just this and that or that and this. Whenever somebody says that we need to change something, ask the governor to appoint somebody that can come up with some solutions to the whole problem. It's a problem of the whole state. Cities, councilmen, other county officers, need assistance in what the legislature has to have in order to come up with a good, sound solution to this whole problem. I'm 80 years old. I thought I was going to retire. I've been promised this and that from the legislature in perspective. And with all due respect, we're not getting the right answers from both sides. Both the companies that are doing that, both the ones that are drilling, both the ones that need to know what we have to accomplish. And that's making Colorado stop, in a sense, what is happening right now, the growth, 1.5 million people, more roads. The quality of life is important. Now, when we got here, 5, 6 years old, whatever I was, it was a beautiful state. Now we can't even make decisions in perspective to Colorado. More fires. Look at the nation and what's happening in the world. Fires in Canada, fires in the US, underground things that are coming out in Newfoundland and all those types of things that are melting the ice. The earth needs some help to exist. It's cracking apart. We already can drill through all this crust to where the melting part of this earth protects itself. Now, I hope that you guys can understand and letting the governor know and the legislators that we need more input. Our quality of life is not there. Okay? We have all sorts of new viruses. We have all sorts of new kidneys infection, the head, all this of not remembering and all that.
Mr. Cerna, if you could wrap up your past time.
Just again, get us some answers and some solutions to all our problems. We can't do it in just 3 minutes. I hear all our seniors, please understand that wisdom comes with age. And you were there. Gave us the opportunity to be human beings, free human beings in this world. Please.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for being with us this evening. We appreciate it. I've got 3 more identified speakers: Eliza Namazi, Leslie Glostrom, and Robert Robinson. If there's anybody else that had signed up and planned to speak tonight, if you could raise your hand, we'll get you in the queue as well. And so we'll now start with Eliza Namazi.
Hi. Yes, I'm Eliza Namazi. I'm a public school teacher specifically for science here in Adams County, Colorado. The school I teach at is one currently being fracked under by IVLC. Without the limitations this committee is proposing to take away, companies like Ivy would happily build their drilling pads as close to the site as possible instead of fracking from miles out, meaning on school property, in our parks, and otherwise in our public and protected spaces. I know this because it's what they try to do and what they have done in the past, especially to communities who can't show up to these meetings or otherwise have barriers to advocating for themselves, like some of my students and their families. This is concerning, not just because it causes property values to decline and they're unaesthetic, but because oil and gas is a huge health and safety issue for us locals. I myself have asthma, and while not typically severe, this summer I suffered the worst I have ever suffered, directly due to our air quality. Literally not able to get off the ground, puking at concerts in front of people, not able to swallow stuff. It was embarrassing and preventable. Okay, For my own health and my community's health, I implore you, keep the 2,000-foot setback. I implore you, hold oil and gas accountable for their part in the noxious emissions that are contributing directly to Colorado's air pollution problems. This is at the point of no longer being about gas prices or the economic impact. Gas is running out. We have to let it. When something gets more rare, prices increase. It's strictly an analysis of short-term gains versus long-term costs. And right now we're prioritizing industry interests, which, yeah, they'll lead to short-term economic benefits, but we have to look at long-term environmental and health costs for Colorado and its people. Overall, oil and gas has to go the way of the long extinct ocean creatures whose corpse remnants it dredges up. It's not our job as a government and community, nor yours as a commission, to bear oil and gas industry's bad business decisions and the unethical means that they require to sustain them. Climate change is upon us, and less regulation for the industry primarily causing it is not the answer. Oil and gas has lied to us before. They said plastic was recyclable and not a danger. That was a lie. They said lead in gasoline wasn't a problem. Huge lie. They hired people to pose as scientists or even regular scientists. They paid extra to say climate change didn't exist. Now they're at the point where they can't even deny it. The oil and gas industry has a history of lying and intentionally screwing us all over. They should have to say it's not clean and affordable. It's just cleaner than all the horrible things that they've done to us before. It's time we call oil and gas on their lies and manipulation and hold their feet to the fire they've made. I love how Jan Rose put it. How much harm are you willing to approve? The legislators who crafted these laws had a clear vision for protecting our communities and environment. The ECMC is failing to honor that vision, and I know that's not what you want. I beg you to protect my students, my community, and me. Don't let oil and gas trick you into giving up your power. You have the power to protect us and stand up against oil and gas. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nemiza. We appreciate you being with us. We now will hear from Leslie Glustrom.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for this opportunity and obviously for your stamina in listening to these public comments. But as the science teacher Eliza just articulated so clearly, I beg of you, it's not good enough to just kind of put in the time and listen and, there goes, speaker number 68 or whatever. But to actually recognize that you have a legal obligation. The details have been laid out in letters and comments to you and by all these speakers. But now you have to actually just decide to follow the law instead of following the industry. And we despair because time and time again, we turn out dozens and dozens of people and then okay, well, we'll just approve the permit for the Aurora Reservoir, or we'll gut the cumulative impact rules and then, carry on to the next issue and get our paychecks. And we don't know what to do because although you sit and listen, it doesn't seem that you recognize that you need to be, the legislature has spoken. And it is clear what the legislature wants. And the legislators have, couple dozen have written you and said, here's the problem with what you're doing. So I live on the Front Range and I am chemically sensitive and I have very serious breathing problems. It's not asthma, but it can, in fact, it was thought to be asthma for many, many years. It's not asthma, but it has the same impact. So every day that I spend on the Front Range is frankly a miserable day. I kink the pitcher and I'm chemically sensitive on top of it. So all the benzene and toluene and all the other volatile organic chemicals make me very, very sick. The image I have of myself is that when I'm on the Front Range, The way I thought of it is like my brain is like a jellyfish. And then I thought, well, that's not fair to the jellyfish because the jellyfish can actually get things done. I managed to get things done. People who know me know that I'm pretty productive, but it's only through this incredible, torturous way that I lead my life and through having to get above the pollution as much of the time as possible. And then when that day is done and I turn around, I come back home and I drive down in and I just see this wall of pollution. And you don't see it when you're down here, but it's there. So I'm begging of you, like all of the other speakers, this isn't actually a choice. You need to follow the law and you need to protect public health and safety. That's what you've been charged with doing. I appreciate your time, but time at this point is not adequate. We actually need rules that can work and protect public health and safety.
Thank you very much.
So thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you
Please.
for being with us. Robert Robinson. Mr. Robinson, are you with us? Here we go.
Yes, I was just trying to get my video going. Commissioners, good evening. My name is Robert Robinson. Like Mr. Cerna before me, I'm 80 years old, and I've lived in Colorado for 75 years. Recently, I had a colleague, a single mom with a serious respiratory disease. Whenever there were air quality alerts on the Front Range, she had to shut in at home. I saw that mother suffer needlessly, and she often missed work. Primary culprit is, of course, the oil and gas industry. And what about the rest of us who are at risk from insidious health consequences, as the doctor explained earlier? The oil and gas industry gave us climate chaos, while knowing since the 1970s the consequences of discharging their waste into the atmosphere. Here in the US, oil and gas is the only industry allowed to discharge its waste on such a massive scale that is risking life on Earth. That's a pretty ugly picture of corporate responsibility. Nor have they ever been principled operators. As the science school teacher said previously, recall the damages of benzene and lead gasoline additives in the last century, even though their cancer risks were known as early as the 1920s. Here in Colorado, there are repeat polluters such as Suncor, fly-by-night operators who do not take care of their equipment, and they abandon unplugged wells. These circumstances distress me. It's the horror of suffering people and communities, the climate chaos of extreme weather, and the expectation of worsening air quality from a minimally tethered oil and gas industry. I urge the Commission to take seriously your mandate and eliminate air pollution emissions, use the term disproportionately impacted community, return to the 2,000-foot setback requirement, no exceptions, and immediately plug unprofitable and abandoned wells. After doing this, I will tout the wisdom of the ECMC with my colleagues, friends, and neighbors, the environmental NGOs participating in this hearing, and their numerous members, no doubt, also will be pleased with the decision. Only the oil and gas industry will be displeased. However, as I summarized previously, that industry does not give a hoot about the public and the environment. It's time to throw them under the bus of renewable energy. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. We appreciate you being with us this evening. Bobby Mooney is recognized.
Hello, Commissioners, and thank you for this opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Bobby Mooney, and I live in the Denver metro area within the ozone non-attainment area, and I have for 15 years. I'm speaking tonight on behalf of myself and my young family, including my 2 young children. My husband and I both suffer from asthma, unfortunately, and we worry about the health of our lungs and the little lungs of our kids and their future. We care about environmental protection, public health, and of course, our rapidly warming climate. So now we are counting on our state government. We're specifically counting on the ECMC right now to take seriously the responsibility of protecting our health and the environment that we live and work and learn and play and grow in. We're counting on the ECMC to enact strong, protective, cumulative impact rules that actually make a difference in this air quality problem that we've been living in for far too long. So I know you've heard from so many concerned residents over years in this process, right? And so many esteemed experts and so many persuasive advocates. So you don't need to hear more facts from me right now, but I urge you to listen to all of us asking you to make these rules as protective as possible. For me and my young family and the millions of Coloradans who live in the cumulative impacts of oil and gas every day, please live up to and do right by the spirit and the law of SB 19181. Colorado has waited far too long for these rules. Please don't let us wait any longer for meaningful limits on the cumulative impacts of oil and gas. Please be brave, be bold, and be steadfast in ensuring that these rules protect people and the environment first and foremost. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mooney. Appreciate you being with us this evening. The last speaker, I believe, is a speaker labeled iPhone. iPhone, if you want to unmute yourself, we'll see if you're on the list and then we'll hear from you. And another way to unmute is to hit *6.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, this is Stephen Nelson, living here in Paonia. I'm originally from New Mexico, and I was part of a coalition that stopped a multinational hard rock mining operation from drilling and exploring for minerals exploitation. The coalition was successful in protecting the Pecos watershed by getting an outstanding national resource water designation for the upper Pecos River and its tributaries. We spent countless hours contacting local, state, and federal politicians and agencies to educate and inform them of the hazards of this activity. In the past, there was another ore body that was left over from the 20s and 30s. The pollution from this mine killed 20 miles of trout in the river after a large precipitation event. The area of the old mine became a multi-million-dollar Superfund site. My point is that repercussions of extractive exploitation of minerals and oil and gas have long-term effects and affect a much greater area than their immediate location. I'm in the North Fork Valley here, and drilling and fracking through ancient aquifers has a very detrimental effect upon pristine groundwater sources. And creates a permanent source of pollution due to the toxic makeup of fracking liquids and slurries. The ecology of our environment does not end just on the surface of our planet. A 1 mile radius around exploratory site is inadequate to the totality of a fracking operation. Liability for fracking operations should extend the length, width, and depth of the operation and any and all adjacent fault lines. Downstream is one of the most, here in Delta County, is one of the most productive agricultural areas in the state of Colorado. Approximately 1,600 family farms depend on irrigation water in Delta County alone, with many more downstream. Clean water is the most important resource within our region. Seismic action is part and parcel inherent in the exploratory technique of fracking. Repercussions are integral to fracking, acting as a catalyst to the preeminent movement of existing fault lines. This, of course, can cause landslides and the resultant damages. Please increase the effectiveness of your rules to protect our people and the integrity of Colorado's natural environment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nelson. We appreciate it. Okay, to the remaining 36 people that are with us, we thank you for staying with us to the very end. Public comment this evening and the other opportunities is now over. I would ask our Attorney General, Kyle Davenport, to speak to that point ever so briefly.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioners, members of the public, stakeholders. This concludes the Commission's public comment sessions for this rulemaking. The Commission held oral public comment sessions in this hearing on the morning of September 3rd, the evening of last night, September 4th, and this evening of September 5th. The Commission also provided written public comment opportunities, the deadline for which was August 27th. At the end of this public comment session, which is now concluded, all opportunities for written and oral public comment will have ended, and the Commission is not accepting any further public comment, written or oral, in this matter.
And that is not to minimize the impact of public comment. We do take every public commenter very seriously. We appreciate the time and effort and taking time out of your lives to present us with information from all sides on these important topics. We treat these topics very importantly. And in that regard, we will begin treating these topics very importantly yet again tomorrow morning, September 6th at 9 a.m. So for those of you who would like to continue to listen in on the work that we're doing, again, we'll start up at 9 a.m. in the Cumulative Impacts and Enhanced Practices and Systems and Practices Rulemaking. With that, we will adjourn and return tomorrow morning. Everybody have a wonderful evening.